Hi, before we start, I just wanted to do the winner of the giveaway. So last episode, I shared a beautiful skein of yarn that had been gifted to me by Perth Yarn Festival and it's a wonderful skein of yarn by Blue Dot Yarns. This is the label here, and this is the skein. The skein is called Moon Age Daydream, and it is 85% superwash merino, 15% nylon, and it was a special colourway dyed up for Perth Yarn Festival. It's completely gorgeous, and the winner of this skein of yarn is Arlo Stone. So if you could send me your details, I will get this off in the post to you. I'm going to go and leave a little message on your comment and give you an email to send to get in touch with me. But there we go. Arlo Stone, well done. I look forward to seeing what you do with this. Okay, beginning of the episode now. Hello there, and welcome to The Meaningful Stitch. This is episode 20, and I'm Amy Palco, and I'm coming to you from Edinburgh, Scotland. And this is my digital home from home, a place where I get to share with you my knitting practice and my knitting projects. But before we get to all of the knitting, I'd like to share with you a card that I've drawn from Yarn Tarot. Now, this beautiful deck was sent to me as an advance copy because I was doing a demo of this deck and doing some readings for the wonderful event run by Knit and Escape, which is by Christy Glass. And so that was a lot of fun, and I got to show everybody sneaky peeks from this beautiful new deck. You can see some of these lovely cards. Aren't they gorgeous? Now, unfortunately, this deck isn't actually readily available just yet, but I'm hoping that it will be really soon. It's showing up just now that it's going to be published in the UK in January and in the US in December, so I'm hoping that will be really soon. But the card that I've drawn for us for today is this one, and it's the Three of Cups. And the threes in tarot represent the fullest expression of the suit. So in this case it's with cups, and so cups are all about communication, connection, friendship, and so the Three of Cups is about celebration and about coming together of community in joyful connection. And I think that's very appropriate, seeing as, like I said, I did this yarn tarot demo for Knit and Escape, which was certainly a joyful coming together of like souls. And I think there's been quite a few yarn festivals going on around the world that seem to be generating a lot of good feeling. And of course, we've got Rhinebeck coming up really soon in a couple of weeks' time. Well, in fact, less than that. It's just 1 week's time. and like we'll talk about just shortly, there's also the knit-along for Stephen West's new mystery shawl, and so I think that's a good expression of joyful coming together, as is our own knit-along. So here we're hosting the knit-along All the Shawls, and you can participate in that through Instagram through using the hashtag AllTheShawlsCal, and by submitting your finished objects to AllTheShawlsCalFO. And I'll put those hashtags on the screen and also in my show notes, so you'll be able to see those, and you'll also be able to join in through our Ravelry group. So there is a chatter thread there and a finished object thread. Now please make sure that you put your finished objects, your shawls, cowls, even scarves, anything that's worn round the neck, then you can make sure that you pop those into the finished object thread on in the Ravelry group, but also you can also just participate by using that hashtag in Instagram, and you will be in line for winning some lovely prizes. And I just wanted to share with you another couple of prizes that we've had donated. The first is some beautiful Nutiden in the colour Sinan, which is a lovely coral shade, and we have 2 plates of that have been donated by Elizabeth, who is at Atlas Sphere. And so thank you so much for that, Elizabeth. It's hugely appreciated. I know that a lot of you are probably wanting to be experiencing the wonder that is Nutiden yarn and knitting with this amazing fibre, and haven't had the opportunity to do that. So I'm hoping that this gives you galvanises you to enter into the knit along prizes, but also that it'll give you that opportunity to do so. The other is that we have 5 pattern downloads from the Woolly Needle, who is Caroline Holbrook, and so that's hugely exciting as well. So I will be putting together little prize packages and we'll be giving them away probably the first week of November. The Cal runs until the 31st of October, so you still have a few weeks to enter. Maybe there's time still to do maybe a shawl in a chunkier weight yarn, or perhaps a beautiful one skein project, but there is still time to join in and enter. And like I said, I'll be doing the prize giveaways probably around about the first week of November, which is when my birthday is, and I like to give away things on my birthday. The other piece of admin that I have that I wanted to share with you is that I'm linking together my podcast and my Patreon a little bit more consciously and with a bit more intention. So now, if you are seeing this, then perhaps you already are a patron, because you will now receive 24-hour access. Access to this 24 hours before everybody else does. So you get the first look, and then 24 hours later it's going to be open to everybody, but you're going to be able to get that first opportunity to see it. And then I'm also going to be posting all of my show notes on my Patreon, and those are going to be available for everybody to see. So if there's something that I'm mentioning that you're interested in exploring a little bit more, maybe a yarn or a pattern or a designer or whatever, then I can put the link to my Patreon in the description box below, and if you click on that, it will take you to a post that will detail all of my show notes so that you can access those. To become a patron, it's very easy to do. The membership tiers begin from £5 plus VAT, which will vary depending on which country you're joining from. But I would love to have you there, and that would be a really exciting and lovely thing for me. Okay, so let's get on to some knitting, hey? Finally, I'm going to have a slurp of my tea. Good tea. So this is the Fleur, and it's a beautiful triangular shawl, and it was a free pattern from Espace Tricot, although I think it was actually a paid for pattern for the first wee while, maybe a week or a month, and proceeds went to a charity. So I actually paid for this pattern, but I do know that it is now available as a free pattern. I knitted it in drops and drops alpaca for the garter stitch sections, and for these lovely stripes and bobbles I held 2 strands of drops kid silk together, and that created, one was a darker pink and one was a lighter pink, which created this really lovely colour. So I will just take it off to show you. So Espace Tricot recently announced that they have, well, the original owners have sold it, and so now it's Steph and Naomi that have it, and so good luck to them. I know that they're long-time staff members, so I'm sure they'll do a wonderful job, and Espace Tricot will continue being the amazing shop that it clearly is. And the previous owners, Melissa and Lisa, are now going on to do their new projects, and so you can follow Melissa at Sonder Yarn Co, and I'll put that in my show notes, and Lisa at Post Vellum, and she's exploring her creative path as well. So it's all really very exciting for them, lots of new opportunities and new creative explorations occurring. So really happy for you all and wishing you all the very best of luck. So there we go, this is my Fleur. This beautiful triangular shawl. It is a really big one. I do like my big they are blankets. My big shawls. They're really just shawls masquerade. My blankets masquerading as shawls, I should say. But I love this dark, natural alpaca. It's like a chocolatey espresso colour. And these bright stripes, these bright pink stripes, and these beautiful bubbles. Aren't they lovely? And so lovely and squishy. Okay, so that's the shawl I'm wearing, but underneath the shawl I am wearing my Stonecrop Cardigan, which is a pattern by Andrea Mowry, and I have knitted it in Berlin yarns, and this is a speckled hen, which is a mix of Hebridean yarn and Cheviot. The yarn that they use, the fibre, sorry, that they use is from the farms of the Outer Hebrides, which are a series of islands off the west coast of Scotland. So that's my speckled yarn there. And this lovely pink is Rauma Phenol PT2. And my buttons are actually vintage buttons that I got from my grandma, and more about my grandma a little bit later on. So I'll maybe just stand up to show you a little bit more. So there we go. It's a beautiful pattern. It's got these little twisted stitches kind of creating these little circles, and inside are these wee bobbles. And then we've got this colour work repeat. And you might see that I have changed the order a little bit and over the bust, and that was just with an extra colour work repeat, and that was actually following, I think, a modification from Jackie from Caddy Jack's Knits, who has done a beautiful version of this cardigan also. It's very cosy and it's very dense, and actually this is the garment that I learned that I cannot skip on a gauge swatch. Ask me how I know. So basically I had cast this on, and I had cast on for my usual size for an Andrea Mowry pattern, which is generally a size 3. And but of course I'm not using the yarn that's recommended, I'm substituting the yarn. And at that point, I think the yarn that they're now selling is sold as a 4-ply, so a fingering weight. But I think the yarn that I bought originally was a bit of a thicker weight yarn. So thicker weight than was recommended in the pattern. And so I got to maybe about here, maybe about the separation of the sleeves, and I discovered that it was absolutely huge. It was far, far, far too big. So I had to rip it all back, and then I knitted a gauge swatch and realised I had to drop down needle sizes quite a lot actually. And so it actually became quite an uncomfortable knit. It wasn't a terribly enjoyable one, mostly because my yarn substitution was actually too thick for the gauge that I had to try and get. I have actually cast on another project recently, which I'll share with you just shortly, where I've had to play around with the gauge and with the sizing, but I'm now a little bit more adept at that. This is also the first project that I ever staked. I'm saying first project I've ever staked. I think it might be the only project I've ever staked. It was quite nerve-wracking to do that, as you might imagine, to take scissors to your knitting. It feels a little unnatural. And I think, one of the things that I always really love about knitting is that, the materials are recyclable. So when we're not happy with the project, or we've outgrown it, or we want to make something different with it, then we can always, frog the project and reuse the yarn. And when we cut our knitting, when we steek, that no longer becomes possible, because you're just going to end up with kind of long bits of string, really. So that's not going to work. So I'm not a mad steeker, I have to say, probably because of that main reason, because it kind of reduces the reusability of the material. But that said, I am really pleased with this project. I don't imagine that I would have ever wanted to have ripped it back. So it's very warm because the fabric is very dense because of the yarn substitution and the gauge. But it certainly keeps me very cosy, and the weather is certainly getting quite a bit cooler now. So more warmth is certainly not a bad thing. So there you go, that's what I'm wearing, and I've got a couple of finished objects to share with you. The first one I'll share with you, actually I don't have with me, because it was a gift. So I finished the Lord of the Isles kilt socks, which I knit in Coop Socks Yeah DK in the colourway Dulles, which is kind of this smoky blue shade. Very pretty, very soft, although I did find the yarn was a little bit splitty. which when you are doing cabling was a little bit finicky, and I didn't entirely enjoy that process. Kilt socks obviously are very long socks. They come all the way up to just below the knee, and then they have a deep cuff. And this is because the garter that holds the flashes, the little flash of tartan that sits just underneath the cuff, sits just up underneath there. And so that needs to be covered, and it holds the sock up. So they took quite a long time to do. I knit them two at a time, in the sense that, well, I didn't knit them both in the same needles, which is what people generally refer to as knitting two at a time. Instead, I knit the foot on one, and then I put that down, and then I cast on the second one, and then I knit the foot on the other one, and then I knitted the cable panel on the first one, on the leg of the first one, and then I did the same on the second, and then I finished the cuff on the first one, and then I finished the cuff on the second. So that way I wasn't getting all the way casting off on the cuff on the first one and then having to cast on at the toe for the next. Because I find that really does cause me issues. And these really needed to be done because they have to be worn with a beautiful kilt that my daughter has made, and for her partner, and these socks and that kilt will be worn at a wedding in just a couple of weeks' time. So they absolutely needed to be done. And I couldn't afford second sock syndrome, so that was my way of going about that, to try and avoid that. So I was really pleased with how they turned out. They feel very soft. Fortunately, they fit. It's always quite tricky when you don't have the person in question sitting right beside you that can try things on and do fittings as you go. But I had taken measurements, and I followed the measurements, and the socks fit perfectly. So I'm glad to get them off my needles. I used, for the most part, well, for the foot I used DPNs, and for the leg I used a 9-inch circular needle, so just a wee shorty one. And the other thing I should say too is that I did my cables without a cable needle, and that sped up the process significantly. So if you have never tried cabling without a cable needle, then I do recommend it. I was very reluctant to do it. I am perhaps a slightly older school knitter in that respect. So yes, I had not done that before. I always liked the solidity and the security of putting my stitches onto a little cable needle and moving it to the front or the back. But it does really slow down the process. And when you are doing a cable panel on a small circumference, then it certainly becomes an easier thing to do, to just arrange your stitches off the needle and then putting them back on the needle and then knitting them in the new order to create your cable. And it was actually very straightforward, and I would recommend that process. So yes, there we go. Lord of the Isles socks are done. The next time I knit them will probably be next year, because my youngest son will be 21 next September, and so he will be getting his kilt, and I expect he will be requiring a pair of kilt hose. So at the moment I'm knitting a pair a year, which is quite enough. So I will return to that again next year, but in the meantime my sock knitting gets to have a bit of a rest. The other thing that I finished was my ranunculus. Trying to figure out the front and the back. There we go. So I knitted it, oh dear, blowing out terribly, but I knitted it in black. Now, I have always wanted a black knitted jumper, but knitting in black is no fun. It's, yes, I find it very trying. I can only do it in daylight. I find that artificial light really interferes with my perception of the stitches on the needle. And so I realised that if I was going to knit a black jumper, then I was going to have to do it now. Now being September, because our evenings are already getting pretty dark and our days are shortening. So the opportunity to knit black yarn and be able to see what you're doing is becoming a more limited time frame. So I was going to have to do it then. And the other thing was I wanted to do it in a pattern that I was familiar with, because if you make a mistake with black yarn, again, it can be very difficult to see where the mistake is and how to fix it. So I thought, well, stick with a pattern that I know and I'm familiar with. And I am very familiar with the ranunculus, as I think probably everybody is now. And the other thing was that it's knitted on a larger needle. I think it's knitted on a 6mm needle. So it's knitted at a looser gauge, so it would knit up quick. And it does knit up really quick. I made a few modifications, one being that I've knitted it longer than the pattern states. So I gave myself more length in the body, and then I did a deeper rib as well. So I think it gave me around about 15 inches from underneath the arm. And the other big modification I made was in the sleeves. I didn't do any decreases at all in the sleeve. I knitted the sleeve completely straight for the length that I wanted it to be, and then I knitted 2 together the whole way round, just at the very end here, and then knitted my twisted rib cuff. Twisted rib to match the twisted rib in the collar, in the neckband, and in the rib at the bottom there of the body. And that just kind of cinched it in. It gives it a slight balloon sleeve, which I really like. And I've worn this twice already. So I wore it for my Knit and Escape event, and I also wore it when we went out to celebrate my youngest son's birthday at the Whiskey Society. So that was a lot of fun. So you have seen this project, I think, on lots and lots of lots and lots of podcasts. But basically there is like a textured pattern on the yoke. It's a very fun knit to do, which is why so many people, I think, have knitted it. The complaint I would make is that it's not very size inclusive. I think there's just one size and one with a larger bust adjustment. But I think it isn't terribly size inclusive. But I've knitted quite a few of them. It is a quick pattern, a quick design, and it's fun and it's beautiful. It's by Midori Heroes, who you can find through Knit Cafe Midori, and yes, it's a lovely fun pattern, and it means that I now have the black jumper of my dreams. So, so yes, I should say what the yarn is actually. The yarn is I showed it on the last episode. It's a cone of mystery. It says it's Shetland. It could be Shetland. I don't really know. But basically it's a cone about that length. Quite a large cone of black almost like charcoal coloured yarn. And it felt really quite rough on the cone. But I think actually it had spinning oil in it because it's actually softened up really beautifully in the fabric. And then I've held it with some black kid silk from Drops. You can see the halo on it. So it's worked out really nicely together, and it has actually created a really beautiful fabric. I'm quite encouraged to knit maybe more with this yarn from Mystery Cone. And so yes, that was a good purchase. I found it in a charity shop, that black yarn, along with another couple of cones. In fact, I'm going to share another one of those cones with you just shortly. But they were certainly a good buy, as it turns out. So that's encouraging. So I've still got lots and lots and lots of yarn left on the cone, so I can probably use it for something else in the future. So I've popped it back into the stash, and what I can say is I don't expect to be knitting again with black yarn until the springtime. Okay, so that's my 2 finished objects, and what am I working on now? Well, let me see, where's my, I'm sitting on it. There it is. So I am continuing to knit on my half and half. I've not done a massive amount on it. That's all I've got so far. So the beginning of the half and half wrap and the end of the half and half wrap are really the parts that take the longest because the rows are so long at that stage. and basically you're doing a short row turn on every single stitch. So it does like it's my little whiskey barrel, my little whiskey cask. So so yes, that is taking some time, and that's fine because this is a process knit for me. I have 2 half and halves completed already. This one is for my daughter, and I'm knitting it in Holst Super Soft, which is what I knit my first half and half in. And this is in the colour Slow. And this is going to be the second one here, which is Robin's Egg, which is beautiful. You can kind of see it's got this beautiful heathered look, and it's got these sort of almost purplish and red fibres through it that really match beautifully with this very dark purple. Now, I was introduced to this pattern by Caddy Jack's Knits, and they've been running a Cal, which I think has been running for, well, perhaps longer than a year, but I know that it ends next week for Rhinebeck, and so there will be lots of people who have knitted their half and halves who will be gathering on the hill at Rhinebeck to celebrate. I will not be there, unfortunately, but maybe one year, fingers crossed. But I will be wearing my at least one of my half and halves in joyful celebration of everybody who has gathered there and is enjoying that experience. And of course, it is a process knit. It is a big knit, so there will be lots of people who are continuing to knit on theirs. I know there's lots of people who have got more planned in the future, people who have yet to cast on that have got their yarn sorted and are all looking forward to that as well. So, you know, even although the Cal comes to an end just shortly, I know that the joy of the half and half wrap will continue. So there we go. That's my first work in progress. My second work in progress, well, this was not meant to be what I was going to cast on next, but I started thinking about it while I was working on the kilt socks, and I just couldn't stop thinking about it. So I cast it on. This is the Sugar Sweater by Julia Wilkins. And Julia has a podcast with her friend Matilda, and it's called Matilda and Julia's Greatest Knits. And it's here on YouTube. Quite short episodes, really fun. They've got such a lovely dynamic. Again, I think it was Caddy Jack's Knits. I think it was Jackie that recommended it, and then I heard it being recommended again on the Knitters League. And so I decided to tune in, and I watched all of the episodes and so enjoyed them. And I saw Julia working on this project and got really excited about it and wanted to cast it on as well. So I've just completed the body, so it's a bottom up knit, and this yarn here is Rauma in their Lamel garn, which is lamb's wool. And then this bright pink here, well, that would be another one of these cones of mystery. This also says that it is Shetland yarn. Again, it is a huge cone. I weighed it before I started, and it was over 700 grams. You can see that it's almost got like a gold fleck through it, which actually works really, really well with the colour, this sort of burnt caramel colour. I'm so loving these colours together. I think they're so wonderful. And this project, because we're creating this amazing fabric here, which is so much fun, and I'll just show you the back of my work. There you go. So it's not stranded knitting. This is not stranded colour work. You're creating these little dots of colour in an entirely different way. You're only ever using one colour in your row, so you're not having to hold two colours at the same time. And it almost uses a brioche stitch to create the fabric, because you can see these little spots are kind of raised from the fabric itself. It's really lovely. The yarn that it was knitted in originally is Helix by La Bien-Aimée, and that was held double. Now, I thought if I held Helix double, I would probably get fingering weight, which is what I then chose as my yarn substitution, but actually, in retrospect, I think it probably gives you sport weight. So that has meant that I've really struggled to get gauge. Once again, because of my own yarn substitution, not anything to do with the pattern. So yes, I struggled to get gauge, and then I decided that I was actually going to just work with the fabric that I had, and that I was going to knit a different size. So I'm actually knitting the 2XL size, and that's giving me a size that sits between the medium and the large. So I've cast on the number of stitches for the 2XL. I'll need to follow the measurements for the large, but I'll need to do, I think I'll probably need to do a little bit of modification as I get up towards the sleeves and the neckline, but we'll see. But I'm really pleased with the fabric I'm getting now. And yeah, I think it's going to have a bit of positive ease. So it's going to be a little bit sort of like a sweatshirt look, I think. I'm just really excited by it. And these little dots have been so much fun to do. I think it's just a really fun and a really lovely project. And I will say too is that it becomes quite addictive. I'm like, just some more sugar dots. I don't really want to put it down. But there we go. Now I've got up to the sleeve separation, and so now I'm going to work the front and the back separately, and then I think I graft maybe a 3 needle bind off on the shoulders, and then pick up for the sleeves. So that's the next part. But that's the body complete today, which is good because that was my aim, to try and get this completed for today. And that's because I've got another project that I'm really excited to cast on. And before I get to that, I will just tell you, in order to get ready for casting that project on, I needed to retrieve some needles from another project. So I then picked up a different project. I should show you see my beautiful bag. It's the cocoon tree bags. Again, I'll leave a link to those in the show notes. So inside this beautiful bag is my Quadrangle Spires. And you might remember this because I think I mentioned it a couple of episodes ago, and it's been languishing. I haven't done anything on it, which I've been, it's not leaving my thoughts. So I know I do still really want to work on this because it is really beautiful, and I want to have the finished shawl. So I finished the main square, which sits at the centre of the shawl, and then I had picked up, to be careful I don't lose my needles because the needle that I changed it for is a shorter cable. So I picked up my stitches and I've started to knit the wings, so to speak, of the wrap. And I am going to be fading through all of my colours, which I will just share with you just now. So this is Solier yarn from Hillesvåg, and I am doing this is my main colour, which is Marine Blanc. And then I have, let me see, okay, so this is Gull, this is Rotgull, and this is Ochre, and this is Cognac. So those are my shades that I'm fading through. And I've got a little note here. This is my notes for figuring everything out about how I want to do my fade. So I'm going to have to try and interpret those because I'm sure they made sense at the time. I'm not sure they still do. But I do really want to have this still. And so I was just checking in with myself about, do I want to salvage the yarn? Am I actually going to complete it? Did it just serve me for the time when I was knitting it, which was during our move, and is it actually no longer a live project, so to speak, but it is a live project. I really want this, and I want it off the needles and on and around my neck. So I am including that in my current works in progress, even although I haven't done any work on it. I will be, because like I say, I do really want it. The project that I salvaged my my cable needle from the Quadrangle Spires for is, of course, the new Stephen West mystery knit along, which is called Shallography, which is a play on the word choreography. So it's all about how colours play together. I'm really excited about this. The first clue has just come out this morning, and I'm so excited to be casting that on. So my colours were inspired by this beautiful knitting bag, which I received when my Gran's house was cleared for sale just a couple of months ago. She's now living in a care home, and she no longer knits. So I've received some yarn and some knitting bags, and I've also now have the ancestral spinning wheel as well. So I thought, well, it would be a really nice thing to do, to take the colours from this amazing bag. Isn't the fabric just absolutely gorgeous? Art Deco, I think. And use this as my inspiration for my colours for Shallography. So really excited to see how these play together. I have watched the video Stephen West brought out this morning, which accompanies Clue 1. So I do know what Clue 1 looks like, and makes me even more excited to cast it on. And he gave quite a lot of information on how to choose which colours go first. So this is going to be, for me, colour A. And this is going to be colour B. And then my other colours, and apparently it doesn't really matter what order these other ones go in, are these, which is Brandy, Scarab and Straw. And this is Jasper and Viola. And these again are whole super soft. I've got 2 balls of each. And I'm very excited to explore the ways in which these colours play together and dance together, I should really say. So you'll see, I'll try and hold all these together. So you can see I've got these 2 shades of gold, the light gold and the dark gold. I've got the light red and the dark red, and then I've got this beautiful purple. So I'm really excited, as I say, to cast these on. And I think I'm going to be doing that this evening. And I will show you the needle that I rescued, which is this one. It's my Chiagoos. I love Chiagoo needles for shawls. I don't think there's a better one for them. And this is because they have nice sharp tips, but not too sharp, so they don't hurt. They won't hurt your, well, they certainly don't hurt my fingers when I'm working with them. And they have these amazing cables. Now, most cables, when you have them wound up, as I just showed you I had, they will hold the memory of being wound, and so they're continually like coiling up on themselves and getting twisted, and in the early stages of a knitting project that can be very annoying. But Chiagoo's cables don't hold that memory, and so they remain straight. And this is, I think, because they have a stainless steel cable that actually runs through the centre of the red laces. The joins are also really excellent. Your yarn doesn't get caught on the join between the cable and the needle. And when you are starting off with your shawl, and of course it's just a little one, it works just as well then as it does when you've got lots and lots and lots of stitches on, because this cable really supports that, and like I say, doesn't all coil up on itself before you've got some weight of your fabric on your cable. So there we go, that's why I use the Chiagu. I like to use Haya interchangeables. I have Haya sharps that I use for garments, and that's what I'm using on this one here, just so that you can see the difference. I do think the Haya sharps are sharper than the Chiagus. Just to give you an example. So this is the Haya here. And so they are a little bit sharper, I think, than the Chiagus. But they are great for garment knitting. That's my preference. So there we go. Right, gosh, so yes, Shallography. Clue 1 dropped today. I'll be following the clues over the course of the month. I will share them with you in upcoming episodes, and I will give spoiler warnings just in case anybody doesn't want to see, so that you can maybe fast forward that section or just wait and watch that podcast episode a bit later on. But these colours, I think, are going to be a lot of fun to dance with over the coming month. So that's what's next on my needles, really. And that really brings me to, well, I was going to say things that, yarn that's come into my life. I haven't actually bought any yarn in the last 3 weeks. Go me! Aren't you impressed? However, yarn has come into my life. This beautiful skein was gifted to me by my grandma. And she chose the colours especially for me. And I think, well, she knows what I like. This is by Buzzin' Yarns, and it's hand-dyed in Scotland. This colourway is called Life on Mars. Isn't that funny, with Moon Age Daydream being the skein of yarn that I'm going to be giving away. Beautiful. So it's 100 gram skein, 400 meters, and it's 75% superwash British wool and 25% nylon, and it's just beautiful. And my grandma gave that to me when I went to see her. She lives in Stirling, and Stirling recently got a new yarn shop, and it's called Curie Creative. It's opened up in the Marches, which is part of the Thistle Centre in the centre of town. They're doing lots of weaving and spinning workshops, which is really exciting. They have lots of yarn on cones that you can request to have caked up for you, and they have a whole wall of hand-dyed yarn as well. So there we go. That was a beautiful gift, and that's where she picked it up from. And when I was also visiting with her, we spent a lot of time going through her old patterns, and she has very generously allowed me to take some of these home. And some of them are these old kind of 40s style. Look at that hoodie. Isn't that fabulous? 40s style patterns. Now, some of the patterns, they do assume quite a lot of knowledge. So they're certainly not the very well large written patterns, long written patterns that we receive from Ravelry, from independent designers. These tend to be much more on the brief side, should I say. But look at these. My grandma knitted beautiful cable jumpers, and so a lot of these patterns are cable knitted. Isn't that beautiful? I love this one. I love the sleeves. I got these. I love old knitting patterns. They're so much fun. Aren't they beautiful? I just think I'm always so amazed at just how, despite the styling of them, obviously, changing, that, they actually look pretty contemporary in some regards. So just the most beautiful cable patterns. So I think there'll be a lot of cable knitting in my future. And the other thing I brought home was this, which is 33 designs for men, because actually I think Ravelry is wonderful in that it offers so many opportunities for designers to share their work and for us to enjoy. But actually I think there's very few patterns for men. And so when I saw this collection, I was really pleased because it's got some, because, you know, I have a husband, I have 2 boys, I have a brother, you know, I have a dad, I have people to knit for, and I don't have a lot of options pattern wise, and so I'm really excited by all of these beautiful patterns here. And again, some of them are quite dated in the styling, but actually I think some of them you know, really kind of hold up to more sort of contemporary designs. So that's quite exciting. I'm looking forward to going through those. Again, some of them are quite funny. So we've got those, and oh yes, I wanted to show you this one. So this is the Aran Look, it's called, by Patons. I'm not actually sure when it came out, but it does look like it was probably round about the 1960s. And I wanted to show you this outfit because it is honestly phenomenal. I won't be knitting this, just FYI. There you go. So if anybody fancies knitting a balaclava with matching jumper, matching knickerbockers, and matching over socks, those are socks that go over the tops of your boots, I've got you covered. Literally from head to toe. So that made me laugh. But actually there's really lovely designs in this one too. There's a beautiful, oh there it is, a beautiful Aran dress. Look at that. And there's a beautiful kind of 60s style coat. So yeah, there are really lovely patterns, but sometimes you have to get past the styling of them a little bit. So there you go. That was a lovely thing, a lovely visit with my grandma, and I was really pleased that I've got some beautiful new patterns too. Okay, so I'm just going to go on to what I am celebrating right now, following on from our card. One of the things I'm celebrating is that the Shetland Trader 3 Heritage by Gudrun Johnson is coming out next week. I have pre-ordered it. I am so excited about it. I have been watching I watched a wonderful presentation that Gudrun did with Kilt, and again I'm going to leave a link to that when she tells the whole story about the project, and it's one with incredible depth and meaning, and it touches on family and legacy and creativity, entrepreneurialism, all the things that just I think really sing to my soul. And the patterns are phenomenal. I don't think there's a single one in it that I wouldn't want to knit. I'm really excited about that coming out, and yes, so I think it's released next week, but pre-orders are available now, and it's being published through Pom Pom. Pom Pom have also done an interview with Gudrun, which is on their audio podcast, which I think they are restarting. So you might want to give that a listen if audio podcasts are your thing. And yes, check out the presentation that she does for Kilt on YouTube. I am also celebrating Vlogtober. I had thought that I might give Vlogtober a go this year, but it turns out that vlogging is a very scary thing for me, apparently. And so I haven't managed to do that. But I do really enjoy watching the vlogs in October, and I like watching them at Vlogmas too. So one Vlogtober vlog that I'm really enjoying is Marilisa of Girl Meets Yarn. She's such a creative person. I love seeing the ways in which she makes her creative choices, and you know, all of the sewing that she does, and the fabric that she finds, and all of that kind of thing. I'm really enjoying her Vlogtober. I'm also celebrating Rhinebeck, even although I won't be there. I'm really excited to see images from everybody and hear all the stories from everybody who does go. Yes, it will feed my FOMO terribly, but but I am really excited about that. One of the things that I do really love about post Rhinebeck is that certainly in the past, Christy Glass from Christy Glass Knits has done Tell Me About Your Rhinebeck sweater. So if you want to see what was the sweater everybody was knitting 3 years ago, you can go back and you can watch these and they're mammoth episodes, so they're really long and they're wonderful, and it's everybody sharing the jumper that they have knitted for the event. And so you get to see the same design knitted in different colourways and in different yarns. You get to see designs that perhaps have passed you by and you didn't notice them before. You see so many unique and wonderfully creative expressions of knitting practice. And I really enjoy those. So I'm hoping that she's going to do that again this year, because I for one will certainly be tuning into that. I'm also celebrating Ted Lasso. If you haven't watched Ted Lasso, I think certainly in the UK, it's on Apple TV. I got a free subscription to Apple TV when I upgraded my phone. So, so I'm making good use of that. A couple of weeks ago, I was really very sick with a 24-hour stomach bug, and my husband took the day off to look after me, so I was obviously not looking the best. and about early afternoon, he decided that we should watch something which was light and entertaining, and he put on Ted Lasso, and we watched the whole of the first season, and it was absolutely what I needed. And then, of course, I discovered that they had won lots of Emmys and they'd had lots of success, and that the second season was already coming out on an Apple episode by episode. So we haven't started watching the second series yet because we're still on a first season high. But yes, I really enjoyed that. And if you haven't seen it, then I would recommend it. I think it's wonderfully entertaining and warm, and it's optimistic and hopeful, and it has a really good message, and I think it shows friendship and togetherness and belonging and all these kinds of themes, and I really, really enjoyed it. So if you haven't seen it yet, that's my recommendation this week. I'm also celebrating the Edinburgh Botanical Gardens. The gardens this year are this year absolutely glorious. They're absolutely glorious every year, but I haven't been for a long time because they were closed during the lockdowns, and then for a while you had to book a slot where you could go and see it, and you could go and walk in the grounds, but it is now open all the time to everybody, so you can just visit. The Botanical Gardens are only about 30-minute walk from my front door, so we walked there on Monday and we had a really lovely exploration of the gardens. The autumn crocuses were out in full bloom. They looked amazing. The trees are changing colours and they're all looking really lovely. And at the end of our visit, just at the very end of our visit, the rain started to pour, and so we went and got ourselves some lovely coffee, really good coffee, from the Eastgate Cafe. They're just doing takeaway at the moment. They don't have any seating. So then we went and stood underneath a tree and we sipped our coffees, and then we got the bus home. So we had a really lovely little visit there, and it was just a really lovely thing. Nice thing to go back and visit. I used to go to the Botanical Gardens with my parents when I was little, and so I've got lots of lovely memories of that place, and it feels very familiar, you know. So it was nice to go back and visit. We're also celebrating my boys' birthdays. So my youngest turned 20, which means that now all my children are in their 20s. I no longer have a teen. And my middle child, Seb, middle son, turned 22. Because it was his 21st last year. You might remember he had his kilt made for him and I had knitted the socks. So yes, he turned 22. So we've been celebrating their birthdays with going to the Whiskey Society, and then last weekend for Seb's birthday, we had people round to here and we had a lovely party and we watched the movie Free Guy. If you've not seen Free Guy, you absolutely must. Again, it's got a brilliant message. It's very entertaining. It really made us laugh. But more than that, I think it really made us think. It was so much more than I was expecting it to be. It really exceeded my expectations. I thought it was just going to be a bit of fluff, and I thought it was going to be some escapist fun, and it was escapist fun, and it's got a lot of meaning to it as well. So again, if you're looking for something good to watch, then you might want to try Free Guy. And the last thing that I'm celebrating is that my daughter launched her kilt making business, and it's called Northern Lights Kilts. She has her website all set up, she has her Instagram. I will include links to all of that, but actually I'm going to share a link to an interview, and I'm really excited to share that with you all, and that's what's coming up next. So we spoke for around about, I think it's about half an hour, about the kilt making and about how she learned and what she's doing now. So I hope you enjoy that. But before we get to that, I'm just going to share with you, where is it? A poem. Well, there it is. I'm surrounded by yarn. So I'm going to share with you a poem which I think speaks to this celebratory message, but I think also speaks to some of the way in which I think about my daughter. So, The Light Gatherer. And this is a poem by Carol Ann Duffy, and it's from Feminine Gospels. When you were small, your cupped palms each held a candle's worth under the skin, enough light to begin. And as you grew, light gathered in you. 2 clear raindrops in your eyes, warm pearls, shy in the lobes of your ears, even always the light of a smile after your tears. Your kissed feet glowed in my one hand, or I'd enter a room to see the corner you played in lit like a stage set, the crown of your bowed head spotlit. When language came, it glittered like a river, silver, clever with fish, and you slept with the whole moon held in your arms for a nightlight where I knelt watching. Light gatherer, you fell from a star into my lap, the soft lamp at the bedside mirrored in you, and now you shine like a snow girl, a buttercup under a chin, the wide blue yonder you squeal at and fly in, like a jewelled cave, turquoise and diamond and gold, opening out at the end of a tunnel of years. So with that, let me introduce my daughter Aurora. I hope you enjoy this interview, and I will see you all really soon. Take good care. Hello there. It gives me great pleasure to be able to introduce to you my daughter Aurora.
Hello.
She recently began her kilt making business, and so I thought I would ask her on to the Meaningful Stitch to tell us a little bit about kilt making and about her new business. So Aurora.
Hi.
Welcome to the Meaningful Stitch.
Thank you.
So can you tell us why you decided to learn kilt making, and when did you start to learn kilt making?
So I started the course in September last year. Yes. And I think it was actually you and Dad who told me about the course, getting Seb's kilt sorted out.
Yes.
And I've always loved working with my hands and stuff like that, as you well know. Sewing and crocheting and knitting and making jewellery and origami jewellery as well was a phase at one point. And And so I've always loved working with my hands, and it's such a traditional Scottish thing that I love the idea of being able to make these one-of-a-kind custom garments for people and their memories, and like, because this is a garment that will be worn for like weddings and big events and occasions, and it's nice to be able to make something that people can associate positive memories with.
Yeah, that's lovely. And you started learning at the Edinburgh Kilt Making Academy, which is connected to Gordon Nicholson Kilts,
Yes.
Who are based in Edinburgh. And you started doing that during lockdown. How did you find learning during lockdown?
Well, when it started, it wasn't actually in a lockdown, but it was still very much having to be aware of COVID and stuff like that. So we all had face shields. We all had assigned desks.
Workstations.
Yeah, workstations.
Yeah.
And we always like wore hand sanitizer, and if you didn't want to wear the face shield, you could wear your mask, or again, if you didn't want to wear the face shield, you could wear the mask instead. I think I just said that twice. So we were all very kind of COVID safe, and it wasn't until just after Christmas that's when they said there'll be another lockdown, stay at home order. So then it was very much having to work on kilts in our own homes and stuff like that. So we'd all managed to finish up, pretty much all of us had managed to finish up the kilt we were doing just before Christmas. And so I'd already got new ones to do over the Christmas break. And so I think I was working on University of Edinburgh tartan for that kilt. And so the teacher was like, well, we can do Teams or Zoom or something to like still kind of have our chats and stuff like that, and if you have any issues you can always get in touch, but unfortunately we all have to work from home. So it was difficult at first, because obviously I went from a period of like not really socialising with people, then socialising with everyone at kilt making, then you're back to not doing that again. You just kind of missed being around other people all doing the same kind of thing, and like talking about issues they're having or ways they got around stuff, and just that kind of peer feedback. So what my teacher actually arranged for my class, I don't know if they did for the other classes, but when we'd all finished the kilts we were meant to do over Christmas break, she was like, right, if you've got time, we can send you out a bonus kilt to do. So I actually ended up doing 7 kilts over the year instead of the 6, just to make sure we didn't forget what we were doing and stuff like that. And as she said, it was really good for our technical folders. To use that kilt as an idea of how long it takes you and stuff like that, as well as having an order of work. So it's like 2 pages, 3 pages, and mine has images in it because I need photos to figure out what I'm doing, of just going like, this goes here, this is the next step, this is the next step, this is the next step. That's all it really is.
So this is really Aurora has a kilt making Bible.
Yes.
She calls it. And so this is basically a folder, a file, that contains all of the instructions and all the process really for the kilts that you've made to date, along with different types of tartan and what each different tartan requires to be made into a kilt, because that can be really quite different, can't it? Because tartan has different sets, or it has different lines moving through it, and that you're having to pleat either 2 lines or to the set, and so that really kind of varies a lot in the kilt making process.
Yeah, so like with tartans, like some of them are just, if you have it in front of you, if you flip it that way or you flip it that way, it's the exact same. It won't move. Most tartans are like that. Some tartans have what we call a moving centre. So that in a section where, for example, has a single line down a blank space, if you go to the next bit, it won't have that line in the middle. It have it on the one after, so that's what we call a moving centre. Commonly for those ones, you would, when pleating, you would steal pleats, which basically means you recreate the pattern, but not exactly. You would like borrow sections. So if there's a plane here, then you would nick it from a similar plane instead of jumping a huge gap. to recreate it, because that's the only way you can really pleat those kind of kilts.
Because there's a lot of fabric that goes into the making of a kilt.
Yes.
I mean, you've got a piece of fabric here that you're going to be making into a kilt. You just collected it just now, so you can see. But this is, what kind of tartan is this, sweetheart?
This is McCrae Hunting Muted. So it's for my first private customer, which happens to be my partner's cousin, for a wedding in the end of the month.
Yes. So it's a slightly tight deadline.
Yes, but
you can do it.
Yes, no, I've done it before and I can do it again.
How long does a kilt typically take to make, darling?
For me, like obviously at the beginning it was very slow. It took about like 3 months to do one kilt, but I can do one around about 2 weeks-ish pretty much now. And obviously with each kilt I'm getting faster and faster, which is always good.
And what do you think is the hardest part about making a kilt?
Ooh, so for me, what I find is the bit I struggle with the most. Like, technically speaking, it will always be the buckles. I don't like putting on buckles. They're very annoying because I never know where to put my hands. Like, when you're trying to put the hip buckle on and it's like weird angles and it just doesn't work. I don't like doing those ones. But one of the hardest parts for kilts I always find is pleating, because sometimes you could get like a great kilt which only has 28 pleats, and that one's not too bad if it's a nice tartan with not too many lines. But on a kilt with like lots of lines, and
because then there's more pattern matching, isn't there? If there's more lines, then there's
a lot more pattern matching. I think the kilt I enjoyed doing pleats with the most was the tweed kilt, because that had no lines. It was a plain fabric,
completely plain.
It was completely plain. It was super easy.
No pattern matching.
It's I always end up referring to it as pleating hell whenever I'm starting it, because it genuinely does feel like it's just an absolute slog, because you're doing the same thing on some kilts for I think the most amount of pleats I've sewn was for a 9-yard kilt, which was like 34 pleats. So like that, it just takes so long. And obviously sometimes like if the person you're making a kilt for is quite slim, they could have like a lot of pleats. And so I think I did a kilt for someone who was like 35 inches on the waist or something, and that still had like 31 pleats, and I'm like, oh, this is going to take me forever. But yeah, I think that's one of the hardest parts for me always, is just doing all the pleats.
Yeah. Do you want to tell our viewers about carving out pleats?
Oh yes, that's always the fun bit. It's scary. So technically, I'm the only one who calls it carving out the pleats, and I just think I call it that because it's funnier. I call it that because it's funnier.
I thought that's actually what it was.
No, it's just called cutting out the pleats, but I call it carving because that's what it feels like. It feels like you're carving them out.
I didn't realise that.
So carving out the pleats essentially is after you've sewn all the pleats and sorted out the box pleat and the spring pleat, which is on like either end, and like done darts and all the rest of it. You flip the kilt, and then you find basically where the bottom of your pleat line stitching is, and you measure up about 2.5 centimeters ish from that point, and on pretty much every single pleat, bar the box pleat flat and pleat 1, you kind of scoop out or like carve out like a kind of half U shape on each pleat, so you're taking away all the excess fabric around the pleats. You have to be careful with that though, and make sure you leave enough excess on the inside, so if the kilt has to be adjusted in the future, then it's not going to be too much of a headache. Ideally you want to leave about like 2 centimeters ish from your stitching line on each one, so it takes a long time.
Because that's one of the great things about a kilt, really, isn't it? Is that a kilt is meant to last you a lifetime, so it should be able to be adjusted within reason.
Within reason, yeah.
Yeah, to take you from various different sizes or throughout your life.
Yeah, and also it's a great hereditary piece as well, because like obviously some young men come in with kilts that their grandfathers had, and getting them resized to fit themselves and stuff like that. And so it really is, and I mind my teacher saying one point that at Gordon Nicholson someone had brought in a bunch of kilts from the First World War, which are still totally intact. They were covered in mud.
Oh wow.
Yeah, literally still had the trench dirt on them.
Oh my goodness.
So these were like actual kilts that had been on the front lines and stuff like that. And so the kilts are still alive. Like they could be like repaired or darned or whatever, and then people could wear their great grandfather's kilts from the war and stuff like that, or they could be donated to textile museums and stuff as a great example of Scottish heritage and the history of kilts.
Yeah, and military kilts.
And military kilts specifically, which are a different beast altogether.
Yeah, I was going to say, what is the difference then between a military kilt and like a kilt that we would generally, make to wear to a wedding, for example?
So with military kilts, there's a couple quite big differences. So the first one is you would use regimental weight tartan. So, for example, I think medium weight tartan weighs about 13 ounces a yard. Regimental tartan weighs about 21 ounces a yard.
Wow.
It's heavy, and also it feels like a carpet. And I'm being genuinely serious, it feels like a carpet. Because I have felt a sample of it, and I was like, that I can already tell looking at that would be one hell of a headache.
It would be very heavy to wear as well, I would imagine.
Yes, and I think, I'm pretty sure you would get them in like 8 and 9 yards, but the pleating style is different. You would do a military box pleat. So essentially because my teacher was like, hardly anyone orders these kind of kilts, so we're not going to teach you how to make them. We're going to give you an extra normal kilt for more practice. But she was explaining to us that military kilts are always pleated to the stripe, so they're never pleated to the set, which is another big difference. And also the way they're pleated is slightly differently. So when you first pleat them, you pleat them opposite. So if you're making a lady's kilt, for example, which are done the other way around, so from instead of, I don't know directions. I was going to say like left to right, but I can't remember if that's right or
right. That's right to left.
Yes. Basically, you would pleat it the opposite direction first, and then all the pleats would get folded backwards to create a box pleat.
Right.
So that means you're actually using a lot more fabric in the pleats than you would do for a standard man's kilt, or even a standard lady's kilt.
But it's so and I was going to say, you've just actually launched your business, which we should say the name of, which is Northern Lights Kilts. I will leave a link to Aurora's website in the description box below. But so you just launched that quite recently, and so people can actually order kilts from you now. So, but you are only doing men's kilts online, is that right?
Yes, it's because currently with ladies' kilts, I haven't quite figured out a way to do it online yet, because for women's kilts it's much easier to figure out specifically like the hip like where the buckles are meant to go on a woman when she's wearing it, because with men's kilts there's a certain amount of like pretty accurate guesstimation. Basically you're going like, okay, I can tell from the hip and the difference that pleat can go there, or not the pleat, the buckle will go there, and that will fit, that'll be fine. But with women's kilts, it's because obviously our shapes are naturally a lot curvier than men's kilts, and also its measurements are taken slightly differently. You can't really do that. You have to have it on them.
But if somebody wanted to order a women's kilt from you, then you would be able to do that, but they would need to be in person for you to be able to measure them, and then again to do a second fitting.
Yeah, basically. So currently, because of where I'm based in Dundee, it would either I'd have to be able to get to you fairly easily by train, preferably within Scotland, because train tickets, am I right? Or if they could come to me and I'd be able to rent out like a space to get you measured and stuff like that, then I can totally do that. So
just to show an example of some of the things that we've been talking about, this is the kilt that Aurora made for me. So this is a lady's kilt, and you'll see that I've still got the basting stitches on it, which keeps the pleats sharp, so that when I wear it, I'll take all of these out and my pleats will still be perfectly pressed. This is the Highland Mist tartan.
So that's
I'll just hold it a bit closer so that you can see it better. There you go. It's a more accurate representation.
Mm-hmm.
So if we turn this on the back, we should be able to show some of what you were talking about the pleating. So there we go.
Ta-da!
See all these pleats?
Yes. And this one was a fun one to do because this tartan has a lot of lines, and instead of it being like a traditional tartan where you can flip it every single direction, it will always match. This is actually a pattern instead, inspired by a different tartan. This obviously has a lot of lines in it, which you will probably be able to see better in actual close-up photos and stuff. But the kilt I did before this was the tweed, so going from a total plain fabric to a lady's kilt which is worked, flipped, with lots of lines was a great little headache.
But this, so is this pleated to the set? Or?
Yes.
Yes, so this is pleated to the set. So basically you've got, the pattern is replicated throughout the whole material through the pleating, so that when we turn it over to the front will look the same as the back, as it's made through the pleats. You can see that. And when we say something is pleated to the stripe, what does that mean then, Dan?
That means, so for example with this one, this gold stripe here would be visible on every single pleat instead of recreating the set.
So it would really create quite a dramatic difference.
Yes.
And isn't that one of the first things that you did when you started learning? Was they got you to do pleating practice, and you got to see the difference between pleating to the set compared to pleating to the stripe.
Yep.
And it really did make such a difference because it completely changed the colour of the back of the kilt, didn't
Yes,
it?
it really did.
So this would be a really kind of golden emphasis. You would see the gold stripe much more than you do, because really the biggest colour that I can see really is the light blue and the dark blue. But that wouldn't be the case if you pleated to the stripe. Yeah. It's beautiful. I love my kilt. And I'll just show you this as well, because you also have to do pattern matching for the waistband.
Yes, on the waistband, which is always fun.
Make sure that the waistband goes all the way around and matches at the front, on the front apron. So there you go. That's my Highland Mist kilt. And my kilt is a little bit shorter, because men's kilts, where are they supposed to come to?
Men's kilts will pretty much always come to mid kneecap specifically, so then it's just kind of brushing just above where your kilt socks will finish up, so there's like a little bit of leg. And you really don't want it much shorter than that or much longer than that, because it would change how you look, actually, because if your kilt is too long, then it looks like the proportions just aren't right.
Yeah, a Scottish person will always be able to tell you whether your kilt is too short or too long. We just automatically know
we all twig.
when we look.
We all twig.
We know that it doesn't look quite right, and sometimes we can't tell you why, but but we know when it doesn't look right. So the kilt making as a craft was recently put on the endangered crafts list.
Yes, it was.
And so I wanted to ask you, why did you feel that kilt making was actually such an important thing to learn and to work on and have a business around, and also perhaps in the future maybe do some teaching yourself and continue to keep the craft present and alive in our culture?
So I think, because obviously I'm kilt making to the traditional method, which is all hand sewing. There's like a machine does not touch the kilts pretty much at all, compared to most mass manufactured kilts nowadays.
Yes.
And also is why kilts are usually very expensive, because they're made with proper 100% wool and 100% leather buckles, and like it takes a long time. But this is the standard, and this is how people have been making kilts for a good couple of centuries after the Victorians brought them back in the kind of whole kind of Scotland revival almost, with King George the Third, I think. I can't remember. It was a George. I can't remember which George it was.
One of the Georges.
One of the Georges became obsessed with Scotland, and so because of his interest in it, it really kind of made a lot of Victorians, specifically Victorian Londoners, really fascinated with kilts and tartans. That's why you have such a wider range of colours. because they basically help design so many different types for different clans and stuff like that in different colorways. And so it very much is a kind of historical piece. And also my family, as you know, like everyone has always worked with their hands. Like great grandma as a seamstress, and then I have a tool that one of my great aunties gave me that multiple times great uncle who worked on Savile Row as a tailor. Like I have one of his tools, like in textiles and making crafts. Like it's always been in our family and as a way to support ourselves, and I really wanted to keep true to that. And carry on, and honestly talking with great grandma about the kilts has been absolutely lovely.
Oh, I know. She loves hearing about them, doesn't she? And
Yes,
seeing which
she
ones
does.
you're working on next.
She was really interested, and the Wilson Muted.
Oh yes.
Yes, because it was over the summer I worked on a Wilson Muted kilt, and her maiden name was Wilson. And she was very, very taken with that one, I think, considering I don't think she ever knew there was a family tartan for her.
I don't think I knew there was a Wilson tartan either.
No, I didn't until I got it in the post.
But isn't that the amazing thing, is that there are so many tartans. You know, I remember I came to your kilt making academy when I was going to get measured for my kilt, and I came to that session with your partner Sam, who was getting measured for his kilt as well. But whereas the Highland Mist was already decided for my kilt, Sam had to decide which tartan he wanted. And so we sat and went through the books to decide, to look through the different tartans and to decide which ones. And of course, you will have certain names in your family background, in your lineage, that you'll be able to identify and look at the particular tartans. And then you might have a variety of different tartans for particular names.
Yes.
So you might have like a military tartan, you might have a muted, you might have a hunting, you might have a modern. So there'll be a couple of different variations as well of tartans for particular names. But we found a beautiful one for him, which is
the Campbell Hebridean.
It was a Hebridean one, so it's like a real sort of smoky heathered tartan, isn't it?
Yes, I actually do have a sample of it. So this is my kilt book. I don't know if you can see that properly, but that's what he ended up deciding on. So that was the Hebridean range.
Do you have the Wilson Muted?
I do actually have the Wilson Muted in
Just seeing as we've spoken about it, so you might want to see it as well.
So this one is Wilson Muted. So it's a very, very pretty tartan, though it was a bit of a headache doing the pleats, as per usual. I keep getting the kilts with headachy pleats, apparently. But actually a good example of different styles of family tartans is currently on my Instagram, where I've worked on 2 McFarlane kilts. One was the Hunting Modern edition or version, and one of the most recent ones was the Hunting Ancient. So it's the exact same it's the exact same pattern, but because it's a different version of it, the colours are totally different. Like I think I nicknamed the Hunting Modern the Watermelon Kilt, because that's I've been doing this thing with kilts where I look at it and certain colours pop out at me and I give it a nickname, so that one was Watermelon. Whereas with the other one, it was such a different kind of green, because obviously the Watermelon Kilt was a much darker green compared to the Hunting Ancient, which is like a really bright, vibrant green.
Do you have examples of those?
Yes, I do. So that one. All the pages. So this is the one I nicknamed the Watermelon Kilt. So you can kind of see there, like the dark green, the white, the red and the black just made me think of watermelon. Whereas this is the Hunting Ancient, so it's the exact same style, the exact same pattern, but the colours are totally different. Because for me, the first thing I see in that one is the green and orange. That's just the first thing I see in that one.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yes.
So you started your business, like I was saying, Northern Lights Kilts, and so now that you are starting to take commissions for kilts, Do you want to tell everybody a little bit about your business and what you're hoping to do with it? And
Yes. Well, the business is currently just for kilts. And I can do men's kilts all online, so no matter where you are, you can get in touch through my website or even through my Instagram to order your kilt and stuff like that. And if you would like a ladies' kilt, then it would be best if you were over here so I can measure you in person and something like that. So for example, if you've come over for one of the yarn festivals, come over a couple of weeks before, we can get you measured, and then hopefully the kilt will probably be finished by the time you're going along to the festivals, and you can wear your brand new kilt. Just as an idea.
Yeah. Oh, when there's yarn festivals.
Oh, when they will come back.
There was I went to a yarn festival.
Yes, you did.
It was Perth Yarn Festival,
Yes,
but
it
yes,
is.
so they are coming back.
They are coming back.
Slowly but surely. And so the other thing on your website is that you have a measuring guide. So this is again for the men's kilts,
Yes.
because if you can measure for the man's kilts, and then you can put all of that through with their order for you to make it. But
Yes.
you've got quite detailed instructions for how to do that.
Yes, because with guys, there seems to be kind of like 3 kind of like body shapes, which all have to be measured slightly differently. So I detail all of that on my measuring guide page on my website. And obviously, if you're doing it and you're not sure and you just need someone to kind of double check, then you can always get in touch with me. I'm happy to organise like a Skype or a Zoom call or something, so then I can like talk you through it basically over the phone.
And you've got a contact page on
Yes.
your website as well. So we'll put all of this, as I say, the link to all of this will be in the description box, and you'll be able to follow up and find out more. But you should also follow Aurora on her Instagram.
Yes.
So Northern Lights Kilts.
Yes.
Instagram. And you'll be able to see the kilts that she's working on and which tartans she's working with and part of the process and all of that kind of thing too. So yeah. Thank you so much for coming and doing the interview.
I enjoyed it.